So, good morning once again. So, in today's lecture, we are going to discuss about dispersion in machine learning, coefficient of variance, standard deviation, and skewness. So, these are one of the basic things that we should know when we talk about machine learning. So, firstly, we will discuss about dispersion. So, when we talk of dispersion, so here basically this may also be known as another name, that is variation. So we can call it dispersion or variation. So let's understand what does it mean by dispersion. So when we talk of dispersion, basically it refers to simply spread or variability, that is varying from something. So spread or variability in data. It determines how spread out are the scores around the mean. Suppose we are taking the values along x-axis and y-axis. This is the mean of these few values, and in this case when we talk of dispersion, these are basically the points that vary from this mean point. So it may be here, 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 anywhere. So basically here we talk of spread or you can call variability in the data. It is basically determining how spread out the scores around the mean point. Another important terminology that we need to understand in machine learning is coefficient of variance. Coefficient of variance, which is also denoted as CV. So when we talk of this coefficient of variance, basically it is a normalized measure of what we have discussed earlier, dispersion. So we already have discussed about dispersion or variance. So when we talk of coefficient of variance, it is normalized measure of the dispersion of what? Dispersion of probability distribution. So it is calculated using the ratio of standard deviation to the mean. So whatever is the ratio of the standard deviation and mean is known as coefficient of variance. So when we talk of a simple regression analysis algorithm, like we are talking of multilinear regression, which is equal to a linear equation. Likewise, in another lecture we will be discussing about this linear regression. So when we talk of this, so in this case let us say this x is age, x1, this x2 is weight, and in the data set we are having values like age of 10, 15, 20, 13, whatever. Similarly, weight 40 kg, 25, 39, 40, whatever these values are. So when we talk of this equation, when we put the values in this equation, so this x1 refers to age, x2 refers to weight, and from this generalized measure we take some normalized value, which may be average of these values. So those values are setting as weight for the model, on which our model adjusts itself. So that is A1. So in this case, this A1 is normalized measure for this age, and this A2 is normalized measure calculated based on mean or something, is the value for A2. And this A1 and A2 here is the coefficient of variance for this particular equation. So when we talk of this coefficient of variance, it is about normalized measure of the dispersion of probability distribution. So here we are using a terminology standard deviation. So let's discuss what does it mean by standard deviation also. So when we talk of the standard deviation terminology, this standard deviation is nothing else. This is just like mathematics, which is known as measure of what? Measure of variation. Means we say whatever a variation from the mean, variation from mean has occurred, this variation, measure of this variation is known as standard deviation. Fine. So another important terminology, which is basically a very important terminology that we also need to know in such case, is nothing else, it is simply skewness. So when we talk of skewness, basically this is skewing from a particular point. So when this we talk of this skewness, so it is a when the data is asymmetrical. In this case we talk about the asymmetrical data. So the when the data is asymmetrical, which means that the values are not distributed equally. So in this case values are not distributed equally on both sides. So continuing with the same graph, if we are having this and this is the along the mean point, the best fit line which we can call, and in this case let us say most of the values are around this point, and here on this side we have only few values. So in this case the dispersion, the distribution is basically asymmetrical, that the values are not distributed equally on both the sides. On one side it is larger, on the other side these are lesser in compared to that. So this property is known as skewness. So in this values are concentrated or either on the low end or high end of the scale also. Suppose if this is a scale measure, the values may either be skewing on this point or this may be on this point. So this is basically known as skewness. So in this lecture we have talked about the basic measures, that is basic terminology: dispersion, variations, coefficient of variation, standard deviation, and skewness. So now as we have understood about the basic terminology, in the next lecture we will be discussing about statistic learning and measures of central tendency, and when to decide which is the case when we have to use mean, median, and mode. So if you like the video, you can give a comment. If you have any suggestion or you want a solution to any topic, then you can put in the write in the comment box. Fine. So we will meet in the next video. So thanks for now. Take care and all the best.